Good evening, everybody. There's a lot to think about already tonight, isn't there? At tithing, we got the Proverbs Challenge, we got something going on up here, and it's spring. Hey, come on, a little what for the spring, it's here. Yeah, it'll be 14 degrees tonight though, I saw, but that's kind of spring around here. I've gotten used to that. So spring is here. The sightings of Jesus abound, and so the river has done this in the past, and we're going to do it again. We're going to take you on a trip through the various ways that Jesus is showing up in the world today. And so some images. Can anybody see Jesus in the chicken? Mark, come on, Mark. Mark sees it. You see it? All right, so hi, Jesus. Next. Okay, what do you think? Bruised fingers, but if you put them all together, do you see it? Does everybody see it yet? This one's tough. This one's tough. Oh, Jesus, thank you for the bruise. Okay, next. Now that, I think he did, right? That didn't just happen. Someone did that. But Jesus, just the same. Next. You see it right away. Everybody see it? Yeah. Okay. Next. A pancake? Is that a pancake? What is that, Charlotte?
Pizza.
It's a pizza. I think someone did that too, but it's Jesus still. Okay. That's a rotted tomato in Australia. Hi, Jesus. Question mark. Okay. I see it. It's just a shirt. They caught a fold in the shirt. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. This one's kind of cool. I like this one. It's chipped off of a building. It's just a corner of a building, and they didn't do anything to it. So there's Jesus here, eyes. Yep. Okay. I think everybody's got a picture of Jesus on the bottom of their iron, don't they? Okay. A sandal. A sandal. Jesus in toe jam. I don't know. I guess the artist can pick their medium. Next. This is on the floor of a floor in the pub in the UK. She was scrubbing one day and poof, Jesus just popped out of the floor in a pub. Do we have any other ones? Oh yeah. This one got a little kind of hard. This is a shirt that was run through the wash. It's a dark shirt, but there was like bleach inside there. Can you see it? No? Can we go back to that and let people see? There's his hands raising heavenward, and there's his crown, and there's his beard, and he doesn't have a face. So, but it's Jesus just the same, as they say it is. Okay. Yeah. Golden mildew. Jesus shows up in the strangest places, doesn't he? Is that the last one? Yeah. You've seen Jesus Cheetos, and Jesus chips. You see Jesus here, and people celebrate this stuff. You can sell this stuff on eBay, and it becomes worth money. And there's a lot of people who believe in these kind of miracles, and I don't know where you're at on this kind of stuff, but I'm kind of like, is that what you're going to settle for? Is that? You know, I don't know if that's, I think it's good to look for Jesus, but do you want to just settle for Jesus on a shower door? I don't know. So it's good to look for Jesus, and I'm going to go to Matthew 6:22 and 23, and I'm going to read out of the Message version. And it kind of tells us how we should look for God. He says, your eyes are windows into your body. If you open your eyes wide in wonder and belief, your body fills up with light. If you live squinty-eyed in greed and distrust, your body is a dark cellar. If you pull the blinds in on your windows, what a dark life you will have. What was Jesus saying there? I think he was saying, just let's just read what he said. He said, if you open your eyes in wonder. You know, just wonder. And if you kind of wonder where God could show up, you just pause. Most of the time we're just running through life and we never see God because we never just stop and wonder, like, who could God be? And then in belief that God can show up. Because a lot of us might stop at the wonder and be like, well, we still don't see God. But there's a belief that He'll show up. And that's what Jesus is saying. If you look with wonder and belief, you're going to be filled with light. And I think it's interesting that God says, I am light, and in me is no darkness at all. So when we take this position with wonder, you know, and with belief, we get to see and experience God. But it says on the other side, it goes, but if you're greedy, what does it mean if you're greedy? It's all about me. You're self-centered. If that's where you're at, and if you have distrust, you're cynical. You don't believe this and that. You already know what you gotta know. And if you enter in and you're done, He says, what a dark life you're going to have. You're never going to see the real God. And that's a decision we have to make every single day and probably every single hour. Is like, am I going to look with wonder and belief and see where this real God is at? It's been said that God created us in His image and man returned the favor and did the same to God, right? And so what we do, what it's saying is, we don't get to see the real God because we create a God in our image. And all of us in this room probably have a little bit of us inside of our image of God. Would you believe that? I don't care how long you've been a Christian. I don't care how long you've been in the faith. There's still parts of you that get in there and you can't figure out which is which sometimes. And here's how you know. See, the God that you create is the one that makes you happy, healthy, and wealthy, right? The God that you create gets the blame when things are not done and things are done in your life that you don't like. And what happens with this God that you create is you get disappointed in that God. That God is not worthy of following. So you end up serving yourself. You become greedy and cynical and full of darkness. And you can never see the real God because you put your trust in a God that does not really exist except in your mind. Does that make sense? And the disappointment that you think that you have with real God is really just a disappointment you have with your image that you've made God into. Right? Stay with me. I would say a lot of people who look really hard for Jesus in like tortilla shells and floors, and they're settling. They're settling. And it could be that they tried their version of God and thought it was a real one and He failed, so they'll settle for something else that's just so far south. And so today, in the last series, we looked at what is the church really about. Do you want to know God, the real God in a deeper way today? Is that where you're at? Do you want to experience Him, or you just want to just do your time? You want to punch your time card for God and He'll be happy that you showed up at church? I'm inviting you right now, and I believe the Lord is inviting you to come to know Him in a deeper way. Maybe you need to surrender anything in you that might be clinging on to your image of God and then encounter the real God. So if you just take a moment, just let's bow our heads, close our eyes. Heavenly Father, we know that your Spirit is here. I ask that you would show up and would you speak to each one of us what we need to hear. We are attentive. We are listening. And we are opening our eyes to see who you really are. We ask that you would meet us, not on our terms. We ask that we meet on your terms. And we ask that we be seeing you in your image, not the image that we have made you in. In Jesus' name, amen. I'd like to talk about an American concept. And since we're in America, you all know it's true already. If something is painful, we think it is bad, and therefore it must go. Is that pretty accurate for Americans? If it's painful, then it must be bad, and we have to get rid of it, right? And it's exactly right. 90% of all TV commercials are about that. If you have a pain, it's bad, take this and it'll go. If you have this fear, buy this product or this service, and we will alleviate any fear that you might have, and the pain goes away. If chopping vegetables is really, really hard, buy this product because that's a very painful process to have to chop, celery in smaller pieces. Buy this product and the pain must go. Does that make sense? And so this attitude is so real inside of our culture that it seeps into our Christianity. And I want to tell you, I wish that my faith life, that's the way that God was. I wish that God was like, yeah, pain's bad, it's got to go, and let's just get rid of it. I also think there's something about the cross that sometimes fools us into taking the easy way. Because this clean cross is so beautiful, it's streamlined, it's simple, it wears beautifully as jewelry, I can put it on the cover of my Bible, I have a tattoo of it, and it's beautiful, it's streamlined, it's painless, it's no big deal. And just think about that for a moment. Do you let the simplicity that the world teaches us that life should be, do we let that seep into our faith life? Do we let that identity seep in and contaminate the image of a real God? When you look deeper, when you look further at the cross, you see something different. I'm going to read from Apostle Paul. He writes in 1 Corinthians 1:18-25, and again out of the Message Bible. He's talking about the centrality of the cross. And he goes, the message that points to Christ on the cross seems like sheer silliness to those hell-bent on destruction. But for those on the way to salvation, it makes perfect sense. This is the way that God works, and most powerfully, as it turns out. He says it is written, I'll turn conventional wisdom on its head. I'll expose so-called experts as crackpots. Christ on the cross is confusing. It's absurd. It doesn't seem to make any sense. And in many ways, it's offensive. Christ on the cross, it doesn't make any sense. It hurts just to look at the image, doesn't it? Doesn't it just kind of like... And so a lot of times we get repelled by Christ on the cross. But this is what Paul says. The message that points to Christ on the cross seems like sheer silliness to those hell-bent on destruction. And so, but to those who are in the way of salvation, it makes perfect sense. People in general will say, don't believe in silly fairy tales, about some God who comes from heaven and dies on a cross. So don't do that. And Da Vinci Code says, well, don't trust them because they're telling only part of the story. There's a lot more to it, And the scientific experts say, no, there's a lot less to it. Don't even worry about it. There's nothing there. People who live squinty-eyed and cynical, the cross is silly and it's foolish. Paul was right 2,000 years ago. But to those who are on the way to salvation, those who are looking with wonder and belief, the cross makes perfect sense. And if you're here and the cross doesn't make perfect sense, can I just invite you for a moment to look with wonder and look with belief and see if God might not show you the beautiful logicalness of the cross here today. I was in the basement of a computer geek's house in 1985. And he had a computer, and it was black screen with neon letters on it. Does anybody go back that far with computers? Yeah. And he hooked me up to something I forgot what he had called it actually, but he said, you can talk to people all across the world instantly. And I'm like, really? And so I started talking, doing, typing things, and I was talking to somebody in Iceland, I think I was talking to somebody in England, and I'm like, hey, that's really cool. He goes, this is the future. This is everything that's going to change. It's going to change everything. And I'm like, I was bored after about 40 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's just foolish, that's just a toy. And then I started hearing things in the 90s about something called the internet. And of course now I get it. Now I depend on it, don't you? Way back then, only a few people got it. And everybody thought, oh, those are those weird computer geeks, you know? And now they rule the world. Well, this is the way it is. When you're going down a faith walk, when it says to those on the way to salvation, it makes perfect sense. But before you're on your way to salvation, the cross doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You don't need it, but there comes a point when you rely on it, right? Verse 20. So where can you find someone truly wise, truly educated, truly intelligent in this day and age? Hasn't God exposed it all as pretentious nonsense? The smart ones argue that there's no God. Right? You know, right? The intelligent people, like, there's no God and I can prove it. Like, well, if you prove that there's no God, I guess you're God. But look, C.S. Lewis put it the best. Arguing against God is arguing against the very power that makes you able to argue at all. And it's a marvelous thing to see. And I've been here. I was an atheist, total atheist, you know, and I wasn't a mean atheist, I just didn't care, you know. But here I was, this guy, came from nothing. I had the ability to reason. I'm in this beautiful environment that God has created. No, it just happened. I go, well, no, it just happened. I have this appreciation for reason. I can appreciate music and art. There's a creativity that happened. But no, there's no God. And I'll argue that there's no God. But you know what? I do got to admit that sometimes I feel like there's a God. Even atheists say there's times when I feel something, right? I mean, every single culture that's ever been discovered always has a faith belief in God. It's something that's in us and it's serious. So even if, okay, I'll give you this. Maybe there's an intelligent designer someplace, but I'll tell you one thing. The cross is stupid and foolish and the cross is not it, right? You've heard this before. Well, obviously accept that there's some sort of intelligent design, but it's not the cross because that doesn't make sense and it doesn't make me feel good. Look at verse 21. It goes on. Since the world in all its fancy wisdom, Message puts it really the street language here, never had a clue when it came to knowing God. God in His wisdom took delight in using what the world considered dumb, preaching of all things. Thanks. Thanks, God, for calling me up here. Of all things, to bring those who trust Him into the way of salvation. He's saying God chose to use the spoken word. It seems dumb. It seems foolish, but this is the choice that God has made. And He says, this teaching points over and over again in every imaginable way to Christ, and this is not what most people want. Verse 22. While the Jews, or religious people, clamor for miraculous demonstrations, and the Greeks, which are the worldly people, the intelligent people, go in for philosophical wisdom, we go right on proclaiming Christ, the crucified. Jews treat this like an anti-miracle, and the Greeks pass it off as absurd. The Jews were appalled that a God would be portrayed as dying. It's the antithesis of a miracle. If there's an opposite of a miracle, this would be it. It was offensive and it was angering to them to think that God could be there. That's not a victory. That's not a miracle. And the world, the intelligence of the world, that's not power. That doesn't make sense. You can't reason that. You can't build a religion on that. It's absurd. But Christ crucified is the centrality of our faith, is the point of our salvation, is the completion of who we are. When you look at the naked King on a cross, it does something to you. It's not on some shower door, it's not on a pizza, but He's on a cross. And He's not on the winning team. He's not triumphant. There's not much to brag about. I'm kind of embarrassed even. This is my God, and He's on a cross. How did He get there? And then also, I'm embarrassed because I do realize he's my king, and I don't live anything like him. I insist on being taken care of and provided for. I want a good life because I'm a Christian, right? I shouldn't have to experience pain. But I want the crown, but I don't want the pain that goes with it. And when I look at this, Christ on a cross, I think of my prayers. And my prayers are always a laundry list of requests and demands and give me this and help me get past this. And it's very much less, God, give me mercy. God, give me forgiveness. God, thank you for dying on the cross for my sins. God, praise your name. I realize that I'm one of these self-centered Christians that want the crown and I don't want the pain. Can you relate here tonight in any way? And so it's hard to look at this image. For the first 10 years I was a Christian, I was angry about this. Christ isn't on the cross, Christ is risen from the dead, but there was something in this that was offending me. And now as I'm growing, I'm finding out I should be offended, because I can't have this cross without that cross. Right? And this is hard, it's painful, and it's a mirror against me as a spoiled king's kid. It's not poetic. It's not artsy. It's not philosophical, although it's all those things. But this is real. This is Christ, God in the flesh, Emmanuel, God with us on the cross. Verse 24. But to those of us who are personally called by God himself, both Jews and Greeks, religious people, smart people, anybody, Christ is God's ultimate miracle and wisdom all wrapped up into one. Human wisdom is so tiny and tinny, so impotent next to the seeming absurdity of God. Human strength cannot begin to compete with God's weakness. Love that. God could have chosen to compete and he would have won, right? Right? I mean, if God decides he's going to win something, he's just going to win it. It doesn't even have to happen. It's already pre-won if he doesn't. You know, a battle of the wits with God would be like Honey Boo Boo against Stephen Hawking, you know? It's just like, seriously. Or Larry the Cable Guy with anybody. That would do it too. But, yeah, I got an amen in the room here. But God comes down and chooses to meet us where we are. He became weak like we are. I don't understand why, but he did. And he knew that it was going to be painful. He knew it would be shameful. He knew that he didn't deserve it, but he embraced meeting us where we are at. He humbled himself. Look at Hebrews 12:2. We're going to jump. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. Can we say that sentence together? Who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and he sat down at the right hand on the throne of God. And so, I was watching the movie The Passion of the Christ. Has anybody seen that movie? And there was one moment, and it's the last steps of Jesus going up to the cross. He's within just a few feet of the cross, and he's out for the count. You can basically tell he's dead. And you can tell that if he died, that would be the end of the suffering at least. It was already brutal, but it would have been the end. So I would just like you to enter into those next few moments here and see what motivated Jesus to get back up the cross.
Rishmati hav Allah nafa. En nachla bakea rishmati mini. Lahene heva mini na. Estai bayedai ni meva. Bayedai menta. Milkacha. Na minaba.
He could have died on the ground. He should have died on the ground. But can you see what the point that the artist caught Hebrews 12:2 perfectly? It was when he set his eyes on Mary, and when he set his eyes on John, and when he set his eyes on people that he knew what he was going to the cross for, it was for the joy set before him that he endured the pain on the cross. Does that make sense? That's what got him up off the ground. He saw him. He saw me. He saw you. He saw us. That's what got him off the ground. Maybe a lot of times now when I read Jesus when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane and he's sweating blood, he's so stressed. And I'm wondering, part of that stress wasn't that the fear that he might not make it to the cross and purchase our souls. It was for the joy set before him that he died and gave his life on the cross in this manner. When I look at this Christ, it puts me in a different mindset. And I'm not so worried about my security and my needs being met and the drama in my life being put out. I don't need to be so victorious. My King on a cross makes me more humble, makes me more pliable. It grabs you. And my prayers are no longer as much as a laundry list. as it is to say, I don't need stuff so much, but I need opportunities to give. It changes you. I don't need you to change my circumstances all the time, God, but I do want you to change my character. When you see Christ, the one who is central on the cross, who died for your sins, without him dying on the cross for your sins, there would be not this beautiful empty cross. And when you look with open eyes really deeply at this changes your prayer life. There was a gal who once asked God, would you help me to pray more? And so the months go by, and her life is falling off the hooks. Her kids are going nuts, the job's in disarray, the bills are pouring in, the car's broken down, and she's just desperately saying, God, could you just tell me what's going on? Could you just be with me? Could you just be? And God reminded her of her prayer to pray more. And she realizes she is praying more, and her prayers are changing. When you look at the suffering of Christ, and you just don't try to get by and through the suffering, but you actually start embracing the suffering, it changes your prayer life. Not so much about me anymore, it's about them. And when you look at open eyes at this Christ who would do this for me, it changes my very life. Without this, I tend to worry and have anxiety about how I need to be provided for, how are things going to work out tomorrow, am I going to have security, what about this family member? And I get all about me, and my attention goes on me and my suffering. You know what I'm saying? It's all about me. And nothing ever gets better. My suffering doesn't get any better, and I'm not getting any better. But when I look here and I see that suffering is actually a part of life, my King modeled it. I too should be part and parcel of that. It changes me. It gets me off of me and onto what Christ would do in me and through me. It's the antithesis of the American way. And so the high standard that Jesus is setting before me, how do you do that? Is anybody holy enough in this room to accomplish anything that we're talking about tonight? 2 Corinthians 4:10. I'm going to read out the New Living Translation here. And this tells us how. How can we let this go into our every single day life? And he says, through suffering, these bodies of ours constantly share in the death of Jesus. That's rough stuff, isn't it? I'm going to read that again. Through suffering, these bodies of ours constantly share in the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. That doesn't preach well. I'm not going to sell a bunch of CDs on that topic. We're not going to get a bunch of iPod downloads on that one. Because it's the antithesis of the American way. Practical truth is, there's parts of me that has to die. Is there parts of you that have to die? Isn't there parts of you, isn't there addictions, isn't there attitudes of self-centeredness, isn't there attachments to things that you shouldn't have, these anxieties that you have, these demands that you actually have? Those have to die. And when things die, they hurt. They hurt. And if you're an American, more than you're a Christian, hurt is bad and it must go, right? And that's why you remain stuck over and over again, because every time you get the crucifixion going on of that addiction or whatever it is, you say, I'm never going to do that again. But then it starts to hurt, and that part of you is being crucified. You say, I don't like being crucified, so I'm going back to my addiction. Thank you very much, God. And then a month later, you're like, God, why didn't you deliver me from that addiction? Are you with me? It says something very active. This is so painful that it doesn't preach about, but it's absolutely true. It says, through suffering, these bodies of ours constantly share in the death of Jesus. It's only until you start embracing that pain as the crucifixion of the flesh is happening until you get to have the last part of that verse that says, so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies, right? You have to endure the pain. Just ride it out with Jesus. I love it as we constantly share in the death of Jesus. We're not going through this alone. He's already died for you. Cling to Him, His experience. He already knows what you're going through. He'll get you through whatever you're going through. But ride it out. Just ride it out. It's hard, but it's better. And those of you who have made it through and have crucified part of your flesh, can you raise your hand? Yeah. Okay. Can you just tell me, are you better off because of it, or are you worse off? Better. Anybody? It's better. It worked in one area of your life, it'll work in another. And yet another. That's why when you become a Christian, you're not done. You know, you think I'm 350 for 40 minutes. Done. No. It's constantly being crucified in flesh so that you can share in all areas of your life, the life of Jesus. It's so much so that when you get on the other side of this, you experience this. And you have the freedom just to be who you're to be. And I love Revelation says you're given a new name. It's written on a stone. No one's ever seen it before, but He knows it and you know it. I love that 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, all things become new. Old things are past. You're a new creation in Christ. That's what He's talking about. But before it can be new, it's got to be crucified. I have no idea where I'm at in my notes today. So I'm just going to go to Galatians 2:20. Paul personalizes his ownership. He says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. Do you not love that? Isn't that poetry? His look is filled with blood and with pain. Yet He sees me and He calls me by my new name. And when I look at this Christ, I sense affirmation, acceptance, and forgiveness and freedom. And it doesn't matter what kind of life I have lived, whether it's been abusive, whether it's been filled with sin or uneventfulness, whether it's been a bad story. Here's where I find my new name and I'm a new creation in Him. And that tells a good story. When I identify with this Christ, I gain humility. I gain thankfulness. And I gain being real in this life. And so, this is God. Jesus Christ. Emmanuel, God with us. God in the flesh. One of the ways that God speaks to us is how we see. And so, in the next few moments, I would just invite you, how do you see Jesus to me?